make sure you get recorded.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started.
Okay, so we're gonna call to order the time is 4:33, and we're gonna call to order this meeting of the City of Brisbane Special Public Art Advisory Committee. And first thing we're going to do is consider any request of a city council to attend the meeting remotely under the Emergency Circumstance Act. No, we do not have that.
No,
Okay.
so I'll just do roll call.
Okay.
Okay, Chairperson Greenlee.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Salmon.
Here.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Here.
Parks and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Here.
Committee Member Glassman.
Here.
And Committee Member Kelstedt.
Here.
Just for clarification, for item A,
Yes.
did these AB 2449 only apply to council members, or it also applies to?
It applies to commission and committee members as well.
So wouldn't we need to?
I don't know if it's under emergency provisions, though. She's attending under a different provision, not an emergency circumstance, is my understanding. We can clarify with our clerk.
Yeah, it might be good to, because I know there's not very many circumstances.
I think
by
it's
which you
just
can-
cause provisions is what Committee Member Glassman's attending under,
Okay.
not an emergency circumstance.
Got it.
Yeah.
So maybe we could have, maybe we could agendize for next meeting, since we have new people here, what the difference between those two things are.
Okay.
So anyone wants to attend virtually, it's clear what the requirements
Sure.
by which you must meet to do that. I
Yes.
think. Okay. Because I'm still, learning.
Navigating
too.
that. I think the rule of thumb is that you can attend 2 meetings for each legislative body virtually under just cause provisions
Okay.
per
And
year.
you have to
Per
follow-
year.
And you have to follow the rules of posting
Correct.
the agenda.
That's
and-
correct. Okay.
Okay, moving on to approval of minutes. I move
Oh,
that. we-
agenda first.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, I missed that part. I thought we were just talking about it. Okay, approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as given to us.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first from Salmon and a second from Davis. And I'm assuming I roll call this as well.
Yeah.
So Chairperson Greenlee,
Yes.
Vice Chair Salmon,
Yes.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Parks and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
Committee Member Glassman.
Aye.
Committee Member Kelstedt.
Now we move on to approval of minutes, which we're approving the minutes of April 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first from Cunningham and a second from Salmon. We'll do roll call. Chairperson Greenlee,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham. Parks and Recreation Commissioner Sewell. Committee Member Glassman needs to abstain because she wasn't present at the last meeting. And Committee Member Kelstedt.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
All right. Moving on to presentation and discussion items. Item C, we're going to receive a presentation from Phase 3 regarding the proposed private art installation.
Okay.
Maureen, whenever you're ready.
Give me just a moment. We're going to promote them to panelists so that they will be able to share their screen. Just for everybody's information, all privately installed public art is to be reviewed by the Public Art Advisory Committee. The Advisory Committee is responsible for reviewing and making decisions on conceptual design plans submitted by a developer of a project subject to the public art requirement. Based on that, we have Phase 3 joining us today, who will be giving a presentation, and then we will open for comments, questions from the committee. So confirming, John, are you able to share your screen?
Yes, I will share my screen. Can you hear me and can you see me?
Yes.
Great. Well, hello again. Here's my screen. So I am sharing the concept package that I put together and that I believe you guys have copies of. I've introduced myself a couple weeks ago, but also on the call here is Dan Zoig, and he's our project architect with SOM.
Hello, hello.
I believe also on the call, I don't think we've had them as panelists, but our proposed artists are on the call as well if there's any questions about the art pieces that we're conceptualizing. But I would like to walk through this package here that shows first and foremost here on this page our project. It's the 3,000 to 3,500 Marina Boulevard project. It is 3 buildings that will house life science companies. We currently have leased out 1.5 of these 3 buildings to Freenome, a company that does early cancer detection. And as you can see here in this presentation, on these renderings, there's a large site. It's all, there's the Bay Trail that wraps around. We've got a large podium courtyard in the center of the 3 buildings, where we've always intended to have some centerpiece of art. And you can kind of see it in that bottom photo here. This is the main drive up on Marina Boulevard. As you would pull up to our main entry, you'll see main centerpiece of art right here. We've throughout the project looked at many different items. At this point, we think it's a prime location to house the contemplated public art. I'll stop right there. Just, are there any questions about the general project, the general, what we do, what we're doing, or the buildings themselves?
No, for me, this one.
Okay. All right, so jumping up to that podium level, this is that area I was talking about. This is currently, we have this pedestal built. We have it structurally designed to be able to house a sculpture in that location. And what we've conceptualized here is a little bit of landscaping to soften up the area, but with the centerpiece of what we're showing here is 3 spheres that will form essentially a CO2 molecule. Sits right in the middle of the podium. We think that the CO2 is a bit of a nod to some of the challenges we face, climate challenges, and the scientific community that it sits in seems appropriate. We have on the call here Ivan McLean, who has done similar like spheres, generally individual spheres in all sorts of projects throughout the country. And on the next page here, you can see a few photos of his work. Obviously, ours will be a combination. So a combination of 3 spheres. One's probably about a 12-foot diameter, and the other 2 are maybe around 8 foot. So this is kind of our centerpiece of art. We haven't done any estimates on this. Obviously, we're here to get your guys' feedback, your thoughts about the concept. We want it to work with you guys. We want it to be applicable for the art fee. So I'm going to pause right there, since that is, again, the centerpiece, our primary art for the project. Do you guys have any feedback? Just thoughts, concerns, comments?
I have a question, can I ask? In the photo you have it also shown with landscaping around it, which is, beautiful. Is there a means by which you will make sure the landscaping is maintained? I mean, is that part of what's happening with this piece, that there's a consistent maintaining of the landscaping around the art piece?
Good question. Yes, of course. So we have landscaping all throughout the project, and we have a landscaper that is maintaining all the landscaping throughout the project. So this would be no different from anywhere else. We have trees on the podium, we have grass on the podium, and all sorts of landscaping that will be maintained daily, weekly, monthly, whatever the necessary maintenance schedule is.
Thank you.
The sculpture itself, obviously, given the presence of water around it, we'd obviously make sure that it's specified to be able to
Well,
handle the amount of water that it would experience.
Thank you.
There's no moat.
A little
No
slow.
worries.
A little slow on that one.
You missed the inside joke. It's all good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I love about these spheres that he sculpts is that in some of his other examples is that they cast some really interesting shadows,
Yeah.
right? And you've got them in landscaping, which is also good, but I think that the shadows are really interesting. If they could be
Yeah.
highlighted some way, that would be cool. I also wonder, will there be any signage kind of describing what this is so the public can walk by and maybe get educated about the sculpture?
We haven't designed that far, but that's a great idea. We'd have some sort of plaque to kind of let you know what you're looking at, not leave you wondering.
Yeah, the other question, which I think is kind of just a side thing, is that I guess there's not going to be a lot of people there at night, but I think these could be lit really interestingly to also cast shadows and play with the light that goes through it in the evening and night, so that's just something that can be considered.
Yeah, I don't know, Dan, if you have anything to add on that. I'm sure we have considered and will be considering some sort of uplighting both for the landscaping and this. I don't know how the shadows will come into play, but we'll have to be creative with Ivan to figure that one out.
Yeah, we currently have lighting on top of the building that points down towards this plaza, and so I think that kind of will do what you're saying. It will accentuate those shadows on the plaza hardscape for sure.
Okay, that's all my questions.
I had a question, because in your packet, there's artwork from Ivan, but it looks like there's artwork from Kurt Brill.
Yeah, let's jump to that. I wanted to go piece by piece. This is the primary one. So Kurt Brill, what I'm calling are kind of our supporting art pieces. The idea for this, so the owner of our company saw these in Palm Springs. I think these were spread out kind of around just various locations in Palm Springs, and like the idea of kind of having the human figure around the campus and in various locations. So the idea is that we haven't figured out exactly where these will go, but we'd have a number of these throughout the podium, throughout the ground level, as we develop that. That will obviously be part of kind of the package to show where those will go and what they will look like.
It could be cool if they were like, if one was closer to the Bay Trail on a bench that someone could then sit next to, or you could be juxtaposed next to this like really big, it looks really big, the sculpture on the bottom of the page. And that could be interesting to sit and ponder next to like that type of figure, but have there be, space on a bench where someone could sit next to the sculpture. I don't know, I think that could invite some climbing because they're young children, but I think that that's also really cool and interesting and a way for the public to interact with art. That might have to be the right location and how that is positioned might need to take some thinking through to make sure everything is like,
Well,
safe.
I think
but-
it's public art, it's gonna be accessible to anyone, so
I'm just saying like climbing, like.
that's what I'm saying, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
Yeah.
they could climb the CO2 molecule too if they really wanted to, right?
Yeah.
It's probably always a
Yeah,
challenge.
I would say since it's public art, it's something for them to be aware of, that
Right,
people would
yeah.
climb it.
Yeah.
Could, or, the possibility.
I think that would be fun. Kids love that. Like, if you think about Pier 39 and they had those big sea lions, and as a kid, like I would climb all over those and have like just the time of my life. So I think that could be, interesting by the Bay Trail as well. So you're envisioning then something from Ivan and something from Kurt.
Correct. Yeah, I think we'll go through, the intent is to exhaust the art fee and we'll design to that budget. And so that's why I'm not sure how many of these or size or anything like that. We kind of need to start pricing this and figure out how we can to that budget.
So are these three figures that we see here, are these the ones being considered, or is there gonna be completely novel poses from the artist?
No, there'll be new concepts.
Okay.
These are just 3 examples.
Yeah, I kind of like his figurative gesture. As a person who's worked in clay, these are really monumental, but really fun that they're so blown up.
Mm-hmm. Exaggerated.
I
Yeah,
do
I
just
wonder
have
if-
one question.
Go ahead.
Multiple genders. Like when you look at the artwork to select, is it also going to be representative of multiple genders?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that seems reasonable.
Be-
I wonder,
Because the 3 figures that you're showing actually just look like feminine form.
right.
And so that's why I'm asking as far as like what you're considering in terms of.
I think, can we invite Noah perhaps to speak? Is that possible? Or Noah, if you're there, can you raise your hand? Maybe.
Maybe Ivan too.
Yeah, I've promoted Noah to a panelist. And Ivan, do you want me to promote him as well?
Yeah, let's start with Noah since we're talking on
Okay.
the human figures.
Hi there.
So Noah is worked with Kurt and knows a lot about these sculptures. So if you can just give us a little background on these and maybe answer some of the questions that you've.
Absolutely. So I've worked, public art installations, large scale kind of, cranes, and working with city planners, developers alike. Kurt Brill is especially good because of the scale, not only, but he's, in his 70s, he's been doing these large kind of projects for a while. Like we're kind of considering the group or that kind of family idea, the different sizes, different kind of poses and such scattered around. They're really organic kind of feeling, but still have that figurative element. So they kind of integrate with all of the vegetation, all of the nature stuff around. I also like that it kind of contrasts with all of the very, cornery, edgy architecture. I love it, but it's a cool kind of cross up. And of course, like we were talking about, light it nicely. They're solid bronze, right? So these are not going anywhere. You couldn't damage them, right? If you tried, it's pretty high quality materials, and then they're going to weather over time. You can see the patina on that green one on the screen here, but that's part of the nature. And once we kind of work out the key spots, that's when I'll work directly with Kurt, and we'll kind of come up with here's what's possible, here's what we think would look good, and then that's our kind of secondary conversation.
Thank you, Noah.
You got it?
Yeah. So I think this is, I think we just need a little bit of guidance on kind of what this process will look like from here. We can propose, what figures, we, like you said, Diane, we'll have a good mix of different poses, different genders
I like
throughout
that.
the site.
How does-
With that, Ivan, are you on the call? Do you want to, if there's no other questions about these concepts, maybe we can jump back to,
I just promoted him to panelist. in case he wants to add anything.
Here I am.
Ivan.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess first off is I've done these kind of spheres all over the country and even all over the world. And these are some examples, like the rusty one is made out of Corten steel, and that's at the State Farm headquarters. And it was much like Noah was talking about. It's kind of nice to have an organic shape when you're up against a building. I think it does kind of soften it. And then the other two, the red one is down in Irving, down in Southern California. And then the last one is San Luis Obispo at a private home. And as you were talking about, the shadows are really fun. And I always really enjoy seeing how it works out. And also too, the lighting at night, I can send some examples if you'd like to see them, but really some people have put the lights on the inside, and it's like the rays kind of radiate from within the sphere. Is a really good look, I found. And the last, ever since organic chemistry, which I didn't do particularly well in, but I've always loved molecules and how they look. And so this would be a really fun way to do something that I've thought about for a long time.
I have a question, Ivan.
Yeah.
So thinking about the shadows and how that shadow light plays so beautifully day and night in various kind of sculptural situations, showing that there is the grass area around the sculpture in the main area. I hadn't thought of this before. Lisa brought it up. Would that grass area conflict with the shadows? That is a concern I have that I didn't have before. Who wants to disrupt those shadows if the shadow is part of the artwork? And
that's a really good point, especially because when you have the two kind of the suspended spheres, during the day, it's almost like a sundial, if you will. Right. I like the vegetation just because I always like the vegetation almost everywhere, but it's a valid point about how they're placed. You might do it and maybe have the vegetation more on one side. I don't know. And I really hadn't thought about that until you brought it up.
Yeah, well, just sort of the thing that popped into my head after Lisa brought that up was maybe if they were elevated a little bit more, so if the greenery was to stay as part of the finished idea, that if they were elevated a bit more, it would not interfere with them. Just a thought.
Also, I think the shadows, depending on where they're placed, and I think maybe, Ivan, you could really help with looking at the direction of the sun and how it comes into that space, because there are those big buildings there, and maybe one of the big buildings is going to completely block out your light. So maybe you can, look at it and just place it in consideration with your shadow play, and maybe help them figure out what would be the best position for those. And not just plop them down anyway. I don't know.
So are the shadows a kind of a must-have? I'm just, if we're having to choose between shadows or landscaping, is that it? I
don't know. I think it depends on how directional your sun comes in. If it comes in really directional, like as the sun goes down, those shadows are going to go really far out. And so you're not having the landscape is not really going to hurt it too much. But yeah, maybe you consider how it all works together, when you're putting it together.
Plus, I think without the landscaping, people are able to get close up. They're able to touch. They're able to maybe sit there and have a coffee, really experience the art up close. I think this type of art is art that you can do that with. You can touch it, you can really get close. And so I think that if you have landscaping, that's a deterrent. But I agree with Lisa. I think it depends on really like what is the potential here for light on the site.
Lighting expert. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm done.
So, Tom, you're the lighting expert around here.
Well, I'm just I'm excited about this. I love the art and the shadows. I think from where I could judge, I think it's going to be a lot of it's going to be in the shade, depending on the time of day.
Yeah, I can tell.
And
This,
Something to consider for sure. I'd love to be down there with my sundial with you and help you out.
I also love the idea of having light coming from inside the spheres rather than just
Mhm.
pointing down on it, because yeah, then you get the patterns kind of playing all over your building site at night, you know. But that
maybe
would
that's an
cover-
alternative. If for whatever reason we can't have the shadows don't work, or with the timing or with the landscaping, we can look at that. Just do maybe a study of how often the shadows would be visible, and then look at some different renderings of that, with the landscaping or without.
And of course, all year long, it's gonna change.
Yep.
That's true.
Right, exactly.
And
So-
also, I was thinking that even with the shadow and the landscaping, the landscaping could actually add to the shadow at night. It could be also very beautiful on a grass, on a low fescue, something that has shapes to it and can help with the shadows.
Just for perspective too, this building is south. So this, as you go this way, you're going north. So yeah, most of the day, you'd probably have this building shadow casting over the podium.
So maybe more.
But yeah, we'll look at that in the next deliverable.
Okay. Is that a flat area? Like there's a first set of stairs where those posts are. Is that a landing if you go more towards the landscaping at the foreground? You see where those posts are, and then is that like a first set of stairs? And is there a landing there?
Yes.
This right here.
Because maybe that's a spot. Yeah, is there a big landing there?
Yeah, it's raised a little bit from the.
See, here, you can see it.
I have to see it from another angle.
Yeah, look at it.
I think there's also access points, access ramp.
Where-
Madison.
See,
That's the back.
this is,
No, that's the
no, I
back.
think that's the
No, I'm
same.
talking here. I'm talking here.
Oh, when
talking in the front.
Here.
Yeah, when you just.
That's the back.
It's just this.
Because maybe you could put,
A landing
I mean,
right
maybe
here.
you could put that sphere in an alternative spot that maybe gets more sun, and then you could put a collection of the Kurt Brill pieces in the center where the sphere was. I mean, you could reconceptualize maybe where those go.
Well, from our perspective, looking at the building here, I'm down there every day, you guys. This is where I work out. I stop and look at that building every day, every single day. So where we're looking at it now, the sun is coming up either southeast or a little bit more to the north, depending on the time of the year. Right now, it's moving north and coming over. So in the middle of the day, it's going to be directly down front at this time of year. And then until probably late afternoon, the sun will be coming in on that side. So the shadows will go that way.
Maybe that's just something to consider as you're, thinking about placement, because that's I think that's
Well,
such
that
a
might just be
benefit.
the thing for the collaboration to speak with the artist and them.
Yeah,
and the
just the
space.
artist and you
That's
guys.
their, those are their collaborative ideas that they can discuss and figure out.
Yeah. So just my 2 cents.
So
What we're saying is that they're really beautiful and we're excited to hear about what's gonna happen, whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely.
thank you. Yes, we're excited as well. I think it's going to look beautiful. So what is the general? I think that obviously this process is new for us, and it seems like it's relatively new. Yeah. What is the next steps here? Because as I understand, there is maybe a council hiatus in July or August. Our goal is to try to beat that, to try to get out to council before that.
I don't know what the next step
Well,
is.
the next step is that you would bring a more complete package
Yeah,
back
that's what I'm
to
thinking.
the Public Art Committee for their recommendation to City Council. So we'll be, at the end of our meeting here, we'll be scheduling our next meeting.
Okay.
So we can relay that information to you.
Okay, so for that next package, I was provided a similar package from nearby
I guess
developer.
what we're saying is the next package, you would just be more honed in on what you see in the spaces that we spoke about and
Okay.
what types of art
The
examples,
locations, the exact pieces, and
Yeah,
yeah.
that kind of thing, yeah.
Do you guys need construction detail? Like what level of design are you looking to see?
Well, I think the more information that, the more we would understand it, you know, in terms of a conversation. So that's, you know, for instance, the conversation today was about certain pieces, but those aren't necessarily the pieces. So the more information we have and more understanding of what the concept is and where it's going to happen, then the better it is. That's all.
Yeah, the pieces, how many, where's the specific
Yeah,
location?
So that we can be really excited.
Yeah, and then when it gets to council, the least questions that need to be asked
Or already answered.
are already answered, which would be expeditious.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll be as detailed as possible. I'm sure there'll be follow-up questions after that too. Make any changes we can, but we'll make sure to
John, this is Noreen. I can send you kind of the bulleted list of what the expectations are of a complete package. It needs to include evaluation of the art, a budget. So you and I can touch base about what's expected at your next presentation to this committee.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other questions for them before we move on? So we do have one raised hand here from Michael. So we will go ahead. And Michael, if you want to speak, you should be able to now.
Great, thank you very much. So my impression of public art is that the most powerful public art actually has a relationship to the location. And I do like the reference that has been made already to the curvilinear shape of the CO2 molecule as contrasting against the rectilinear structure of the bioscience buildings. That makes sense to me. But CO2 doesn't really have a lot of reference to the bioscience community. I think I mean, if you would consider something more germane to bioscience, like maybe a peptide bond, or this site is built on top of an old municipal landfill. And so if it was maybe a methane molecule, that might be more germane to the location. And yeah, it might get people thinking about the location. Also, the reference to the Freenome company that is at least 1.5 of the building site, that's a cancer detection company, you said, and the figures look emaciated, if you will, and people will make that connection. I just think if you want human forms, if you want figures, I don't know, if they could be more inspirational rather than, unless you're comfortable with people connecting cancer and disease state to these figures. These are things that come up in public art. I think that the people who go out there are going to make those connections. And so one of the questions then is, what is it you want the art to do? What is its messaging or references? That's one piece that's kind of missing to me in the presentation so far. And I had one question for the architect reference. Dan Zweig, you're not by any chance related to Janet Zweig, the artist with a public practice, are you?
No.
Okay. She has some impressive pieces. Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John. I will touch base with you in the next several days. Thanks so much for taking the time today. We appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you all for your consideration.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
So this will come back at a future meeting.
Yeah,
That's correct.
with more
with more detail. Okay, moving on to item D, quarterly public art fund report.
Give me just a moment to make these adjustments here. Okay. Okay, I think we're good. Sorry, just bear with me. Okay. Can I pin this? There we go. Okay. As provided in the packet, there's a summary of the current public art fund. The available amount in the fund is $1,841,233.09, and that's as of the end of March.
I have a question. Says 6/15/22. Wait, never mind. So is the 7,920? That's what's left of whatever we're paying for the restoration? Because I see multiple like
Withdrawals, yeah.
Yeah, I see multiple.
I will verify. I think that was part of the original amount that was allocated for that project, but I will confirm the total amount that's been expended. We can report back at our next meeting.
Yeah, this seems to be like what we anticipate spending additionally for the mural, and be good to know what sort of work is left for that.
Sure.
Or is that for same stuff in the future maybe?
I'll find out.
Yeah, that's a good
Maintenance.
point.
Yeah.
It could be earmarked.
Yeah,
Okay. We got 50 from 125 Valley Drive. Seems to be like a random number, right?
Maybe it was just a donation.
Could be.
Well, they also gave 500 and 830, so I don't know. Maybe is it customary? It seems like for people to make it in installments based
Yes.
on how far along they are
Yes.
in their construction. I see. I'm sure Julia can speak to that.
Okay, are there any other questions about this? No, I have none. Oh, you do?
No, I said, I have none.
Okay, you have none. Okay, good. All right, we'll move on to item E, the final RFP review is process scheduled before recommendation.
Okay, so this came to you at your last meeting. The only amendment that we had was on page 6, number 7. We included language there, establishing criteria for when a curator is necessary.
That's good.
And then included throughout the document is the general timeline for the RFP. Considering that this would need to go to City Council at the May 18th meeting, we anticipated an RFP release date of May 22nd. Page 7 has the RFP timeline for your reference. So the deadline for submissions would be June 30th. And then the committee would review, conduct interviews if necessary, and then it would return to City Council for the award of contract in September.
I have a question. I love this timeline, and I just want to make sure we're not rushing it by making it June 30th. I have nothing to base that on. Is that how that usually happens?
I did take a look at South San Francisco's and Redwood City's timeline for their RFP, and this was consistent with the number of weeks between the RFP release, the questions, and the deadline, and so forth.
You can always extend if you need it.
Yeah, I was just.
Yeah.
We.
And there's a disclaimer there that it's subject to our modification if we deem necessary.
I'm ready. Let's get this going here. Right. Let's go.
So do we need, you want a motion?
To recommend to City Council, yes.
I think I should not make that motion. Okay, so yes.
Oh, I move that we take the RFP review with process before the City Council as is. You can second that.
Great. Okay, we will roll call. Chairperson Greenlee,
Aye.
Vice Chair Salmon,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Aye.
Parks and Recreation Commissioner Sewell.
Aye.
Committee Member Glassman
Aye.
and Committee Member Kelstead.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Yay. Well done.
Off we go. Thanks.
Item F, art implementation guideline review. Okay, so hopefully we have all reviewed this and we're going to open it up for questions.
Does staff want to go over the purpose of maybe why we have this item on the agenda?
Yeah, sure. So the ordinance was established in 2014 just to increase citizens' appreciation of art, to improve quality of life, and enhance Brisbane's identity as a unique community within the Greater Bay Area. Public art should stimulate creativity, imagination, induce creative conflict, and add a unique human quality to the community environment and enrich public spaces. A city rich in art becomes an outdoor cultural museum accessible to everyone. Public art can and should be an integral part of the design and the planning process of all future development. And then the implementation guidelines provide an outline of the overarching goals being community involvement, diversity of art, creation of sense of place, artist participation. There's several definitions, referencing content throughout the document, as well as our general procedures around privately installed art, which we talked about tonight or today, and publicly installed art, as well as the use of the public art funds.
So I think when we had discussed this, it was just, we have new committee members and there may be questions about, how anything about the guidelines. So
That was my intent for
Yeah.
wanting it to be reviewed, because I knew we had new committee members. And I wanted them to be able to have time to read what was there. And if they had any questions or suggestions, that this would be the time for with the review. So I guess I'm actually looking at you. And
he's been here.
I've been here for a year. I got it down.
Okay, cool.
You graduated from Newbie Status.
I have this.
You do have it?
Yeah, it's in here.
Don't feel like I do.
Oh,
They're usually really outspoken to me. Everything more kind of-
I'm trying. I'm warming up.
Yeah, and this was approved by the council in
Yes.
2021.
yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just getting familiar with this document, it's a good blueprint.
All right, Diane.
Diane, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I actually do. I'm kind of curious about why it's limited to visual art. I understand the necessity for public access, but there are ways to provide public access to recordings of performance or videos of performance, so that it just seems to me that concentrating on, I guess I'm just curious more than anything about why the scope of public art is limited to visual art.
We've had that discussion in the past.
Yeah.
And I've been one who has thought that should be included, and have a better understanding of what that meant. But I don't know if the rest of the committee felt that way.
I think that when we had that discussion, the thought was when you're spending public art funds, that you're adding to a collection that has some level of permanency. Of course, you wouldn't spend the majority of your budget on art on loan, for example, but you might earmark some of your budget to that. But we did have a discussion, and I think that we discussed like maybe there's a way to do some performance art. But that was a while ago. And
Yeah, it was, when I was looking at this, I always thought that if there was a public art, 3D visual piece that encompassed some sort of way for it to be also performative in relationship or in collaboration, whether it's for the opening or it happens occasionally or whatever, that it might be important to make sure that somewhere in the document, it allowed for that.
Mhm.
That was where I was coming from. As opposed to the public arts are now doing a concert series. That's a very different thing. Do you see what I'm saying? I just didn't want us to somehow, if a piece was was being done, a public art piece, and the artist said, I have this great performance piece that goes with it that I would like to have shown, whether it's video or whether it's film or whether it's spoken word or whether it's song or dance or whatever, that if we didn't have that ability to have that inside the guidelines, we might miss out on something. That's more where I was coming.
But it's not in the guidelines right now.
No, it's
No,
not.
it's
In fact,
not.
Okay.
in fact, it's
Because
specific-
I mean, I agree that it would be nice to, it feels, I mean, obviously, as a written word person, there is a performative aspect of doing spoken word, and it can be permanent record of what you do, the performances that you give that become part of the collection. And I'm thinking, in terms of like museums, that museums often show films alongside their permanent collections with some of their visual artists who create more object-oriented visual art. So I guess I mean, I kind of agree with Camille on this about wanting that possibility to be included in these guidelines. Or the possibility of
Can you
using
say in
the
collaboration with or a public art piece?
Well, it says, the very last page says, no more than 20% of the fee may be directed for public art administration and may be spent on the following purposes. A, project administration. B, community education programs, publicity, dedications, and other purposes as recommended by Public Art Committee and approved by the City Council. So to me, that gives,
Where is that again? I'm sorry.
the very last page of the
Use of funds.
and I think that that's where our conversation,
Page before the map.
I think that's where our conversation went when we had it. And I think that might have, I mean, we could have Tom look at it,
Okay.
the city attorney, but to me, that leaves that's a little bit of an area of interpretation. 20%, so there's, you can't spend your whole budget on that, but I think that we could do something publicity, right? You could envision publicity in many ways, or dedications if you wanted to, have a ceremony around the opening of a new space, a new piece of art. You may incorporate performance art into that dedication ceremony. But to me, the kicker is other purposes as recommended by Public Art Committee and approved by the City Council. That's under Public Art Administration. So, I think we would have to check with Tom and see with what his, we would want a legal opinion on that. But I would think that definitely dedications would be a place where you could have that right now.
Well, also, just having, sorry, can I just say one little thing? Just as far as written word, I mean, I've seen installations, I believe in Millbrae or Burlingame somewhere, they have a poetry walk. And it's an installation in the park, which would also go with our park and rec, that has, plaques with poetry on them that are inset into the park. And I wonder if that would also be considered public art.
I would say so.
Yeah, but it's not a visual art, but it's a installation of a written word, which is art.
Right. See, I guess
So-
sorry, Lisa.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead. Diane.
Because
That
I
was
mean,
just-
my confusion is why you would why there you would. I mean, I'm talking about performance and performing arts and written word, which to me falls under the purview of artwork, and the definition should be under the definition of artwork, not under administrative or costs. That it's like that if you're and forgive me, but relegating it to being a poem that's read at a dedication, that's not exactly the same thing as what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, you know, when we're talking about the guidelines by which we're going to be evaluating potential artwork to bring into the collection, all I'm saying is that it seems to me that the provision should be made for it under the definition of artwork or work of art, as well as under in the definitions under public art as well, because it's under public art, it says any permanent display of a work of visual art that was specifically designed to be located on a site where it be easily accessible to the public. And the thing is that it's a permanent display of a work of visual art, which has a specific connotation as opposed to a record of performance or as Lisa just pointed out, a representation of the written word that is a physical object. And that's all. That was all the kind of my comment on this, was that the scope and the definition seem to exclude anything but visual art.
Could we on page 14?
That's what she's talking.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying artwork or work of art. If we're going to talk to our attorney, I think artwork or work of art is the paragraph that could include just expand the inclusion.
Yeah.
Madison?
It could be, and I mean, I
No, 'cause
understand
my
we're
page
looking
numbers are
for.
different.
It's,
I mean,
On the
in
scale.
collaboration with.
it just sounds like, is that what you're looking at, Diane? Artwork or work of art?
Yes,
I'm
it's
looking at that as potentially,
Yeah.
that's where there could be an addition, but we do need to talk to our attorney because
Mhm.
we start messing around with this and.
Well,
Yeah.
in collaboration means that I think what Diane is saying is like having a standalone, not in collaboration. Like,
yeah,
do
I mean,
you want to
sorry.
incorporate performance art as a, and we may say, hey, yes, we think that there's room for performance art within the public art ordinance, not to exceed, like maybe then you start adjusting the percentages. So maybe for visual art, you might say it's 50%, and for no less than 50% of the money fees collected, and then performance art might be 15. Then you may determine
use
like
of
there's
funds.
under use of funds, and as a body we would say, okay, yes, we see that the need for performance art as a part of this document. How big of a role should it play in how we spend money? Should it be equal? Should we spend an equal amount on performance art versus, permanent public art?
Would you
Or
include in performative art media as well?
in what sense?
Well, if we're gonna put it into percentages and artwork and work of art, wouldn't you do performative art as well as media art?
Give me an example of media art, because it
Film.
says mixed.
Film.
Okay, so not okay. This
I'm
says
not
mixed
saying-
media
I'm
on
just
here.
saying,
No, mixed.
Yeah,
mixed media
That's
is
why I'm
not-
asking, yeah, that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking
media,
for,
media,
yeah,
media.
so
Mixed media is not that bad.
if we're gonna fund a film festival, is that, I'm asking for example.
Yeah, if we decide that, you know, there's this great piece that we put up and it's somewhere on a walkway and it'd be great to have some kind of film part of it
Or music.
or whatever, are we gonna fund that?
Yeah, or you may say, oh, the
That's what I'm
artist
saying.
evening is sharing, the artist evening is sharing now falls under that, so does that become then annually a public art item, a budgeted item in public art, or does that still come out of Park and Rec budget? You know,
Right.
then you would start looking at something like there are probably
Well,
current
I
events that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting to details. I don't know if the night of art sharing is something that, I think that's been its own little thing. I don't know, I may be wrong.
No, I think we get into ownership issues.
Yeah,
if we
we-
cross that line.
Yeah, when you get
Yeah,
to that,
no, that's
I mean,
true.
that's like, when I say performance art, I would never think that BDW would be a part of this. That's its own thing. But you know what I'm saying, because we're not, yeah, I know. But it's a good discussion.
Well, yeah, but
why
that's
I
not a
think that
city
way.
event, this is a city event, that's what I'm saying, like.
Oh,
But also, you do get into ownership.
but that is a
Ownership
different
issues is
question.
huge, legal thing.
It's a-
That's why this question needs to be batted off to Tom for initial
Yeah.
contemplation.
Let's.
Because,
Yeah, 'cause
because we
I-
really could get into some legal.
Well,
quagmire.
Kevin's
I
here,
also-
with his hand raised, and I think that Kevin,
Yeah. I
this was
gonna-
discussed like way back when the
Yeah,
initial framework was being
Right.
developed, so
Right.
I think
So
he you would wanna have a good. Open for
Oh, yeah,
public
yeah,
comment?
yeah.
I think we should,
Yeah,
okay.
let's
yeah,
open
can we
for Kevin.
open this?
Hi, Kevin, you should be able to speak now.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is a big, big discussion right from the very beginning about performing arts versus the visual art. And of course, I would have been all for performing arts being somehow included in this because at that time I was doing Live at Mission Blue, and that would have given us a funding revenue. However, performing arts are traditionally funded by hotel tax funds. And as we looked at other cities, they were never, we looked for any example in all of the 30 cities where part of a public arts ordinance could be used towards funding performing arts. But bottom line is, I listened to the discussion, you're talking about the implementation guidelines. The ordinance, you would have to change the ordinance because the ordinance is very specific about its supporting visual arts alone. So if you are going to take this to the attorney and so on, you have to go back to the ordinance, which is a much more difficult thing to change than the implementation guidelines. You know, I think there's an avenue where, you know, we do have hotels here where where the city could go through a process of having a hotel tax fund that is performing arts. This discussion has come up many, many times. As much as I would love to see funding going to performing arts, that is my area, professional area. This really traditionally has been designed just for the visual arts.
Right.
So if you do want to try to change it, you've got to go back to the ordinance and make that adjustment into the ordinance, and that's a much bigger hurdle and a much bigger conversation.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Because I
you.
think post tax fund is exactly what we're looking at, and that's another way of looking at that, because we do get, the city does get hotel tax. No, yes, they're hotels.
Yeah, Yes. but the,
That's a different ball of wax.
mhm.
I'm just saying.
It's a different ball of wax.
Yeah.
The city, yeah. I don't know that the city is financially in a position to start earmarking some of the existing hotel tax to that type of fund, but I would be curious
We
to
could address
know.
that
But you can
further
address
down the
it.
road.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know, to Kevin's point, because as he was talking, this was bringing back a lot of memories because I was on the Park and Rec Commission when we were working on this and before I was on the council. And I know that we had the conversation with South San Francisco, and I think that we brought up the question about performing art. And I can't remember what their response
It was
was.
through their Park and Rec.
Oh, okay, there it was. So we have been kind of mulling this over, but I would be curious if on the cities that we've already been looking at, Alameda, Belmont, San Diego, South San
Anaheim.
Francisco, where we have the master,
we have the public art master plan. If any of those public art master plans have a provision for performing art, because that would be a definite section of a public art master plan. And to, let's say 3 years from now, we decide we want to figure out a way to add in performance art, but we're already done with our public art master plan. Then that's like that's a huge component of that. I do feel like the city does have so many opportunities to take in performance art. We offer so many, different avenues to do that. Unlike, I think, how we've been able to provide physical visual art. That's something that, if you look at what the city has to offer, we have great offerings in performance art, and we're definitely lacking in visual.
Well, also, I think when you think of visual art, you think of a city and you think of this fund, you think of a collection. The city wants a collection of this public art that we can say our citizens can enjoy, and it's open to all. And I think when you talk about a collection in perpetuity, it's hard to think about, things that are ephemeral or
They're
what
over within an hour and a half.
Yeah, that are over within an hour and a half. Okay,
Hey,
so
hey, if you can figure out a way to preserve Christo's work, which was
But
very ephemeral, basically, and keep that in perpetuity, I think there are other ways to do that. To capture things that are of an ephemeral nature. My whole thing on this was just whether or not, what the thought process behind it was. And whether or not there was an avenue for the inclusion of these other branches of art beyond visual. So
Right now.
I
was just going after the hotel cat.
For the new members, I think it was nice to hear that
Yeah.
discussion.
yeah, that's totally.
That was
It was
very
really good.
informative.
Yeah, very important.
Thank you, Kevin.
yeah, and I also think that, just to revisit one thing that came up before, is that there's a difference between a showcase like the art sharing and artwork that is specifically commissioned or presented and created for the purpose of being public art. The art sharing is basically, it's a showcase to the artists that exist and their existing artwork. What we're talking about is the commission of artwork specifically to be displayed within the city. And there is a difference between those two things. So I don't think that one would that the art sharing would come under the banner of the Public Art Committee.
Right.
That's true. Thank you.
Yeah, that was very
Good stuff.
We'll come back to master.
Good new perspectives there.
Thank you. All right.
And I'm glad that Kevin was there to answer that question. That was very enlightening.
Yeah, that's
No,
Yes,
very-
thank you
really
so
good.
much.
Can I make a small quibble?
Yeah.
Because I'm a word person, and under the purpose and the guidelines, the induce creative conflict.
What page? I'm sorry.
The very first paragraph it's on page 13 on my packet. Under the arts implementation guidelines and the purpose. So to induce means to begin or create. I am a
conflict? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, the induce creative conflict. I am a word person.
I know that.
This is the word induce is not the correct word there.
What would you suggest?
Well, I guess what's the thought behind that, the phrase to, like, what is it that you are wanting to do with creative conflict?
Stimulate creative conflict.
Okay. That would be,
Yeah.
I guess it's the idea that it's like, if
Thank you.
I don't know that.
I'm thinking that it's not so much conflict as it is creative thought.
Yeah, so we can make a notation of that. Any
Yeah,
changes
that's
to the implementation guidelines would have to go back to city council for their
Okay.
adoption, but we could certainly note it if we anticipate
Just-
any other changes to the guidelines that
Right.
the committee
we
wants
go
to
along.
incorporate once we hear from Tom.
It's
Yeah.
a good thing we have you, Diane.
We will be on notice from Diane for
Yes.
any typos.
Yes.
Or incorrect grammar.
Oh, there are typos.
Intention.
Really intention. Talking about intention. and I
Thank you.
appreciate your
Yeah.
perspective.
We're gonna have good intention moving forward. We need you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, Art, was that the final review of the schedule? Where are we?
Oh, we're on item G.
Oh, we're on it. Okay. Now we're going to revisit low-hanging fruit small scale project list. And I was asking Maureen before if we have a list, and she says she does.
Yeah, so the committee talked about this at the March 20th meeting. It's in the minutes from that meeting, but I'm happy to share out what that list included. The master plan's not going to come back to the committee until July or August to review the proposals that are received. So I have a couple of months to revisit the conversation around low-hanging fruit. So the items that came up as possibilities at that March meeting included an exhibit space to display temporary art aside from this conference room, decorative mailboxes for community involvement, sidewalk chalk art event, Firth Park refreshing the helix and turtle sculptures, a possible film festival for youth, surprise art pieces throughout town, and a bench art project.
Surprise, what was, surprise art.
Mhm.
What was the before the film festival?
Firth Park.
Oh, Firth Park.
It is a few draft.
Oh, well, that
Well,
project,
that's
that project
yeah.
has been on the,
What's that?
it got
First
stopped.
part, so.
It got
And
It got
benches.
shut down by COVID and then
Benches.
it got shut down
Yeah.
by the flood.
Yeah.
So it got a double whammy.
Yeah.
But it's on, but I think it's an art project. and
It
it's-
is.
Same for the film festival. Ludofest is going away.
Yeah.
So that might be, there may be a way to make that a type of event happen in that,
in that
yeah,
space.
in that space. So I would say that could be,
Next year, a year from this weekend.
yeah,
I would love
Or
to
not
learn
this-
everything from you.
not this weekend, but like it's flexible. We've
Yeah.
had Ludofest in September, October, March, May. So I think that you and I maybe could collaborate on
But,
something.
okay, so that's fine with me, but going back to if you're saying a film festival,
Yeah.
doesn't that all of a sudden go into
Exactly.
the gout
Exactly.
So I
line?
That's
think-
something.
So I'm
just
saying we
saying.
could, that would be, I'm separating that out.
Okay, all right.
So I think that, yeah,
I also think the Chalk Festival is more of a temporary art thing that goes under Park and Rec. Don't you
Yeah.
think?
I agree.
That's part of our Park and
Because
Rec.
it's gonna be gone in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, if that long.
I don't know, sometimes they
Yeah,
stick around
sometimes.
and people
Yeah.
ride their bikes on them.
But I agree.
Could we propose something different?
yeah.
Like I was thinking of a day a day in Brisbane, like a photo project or even a film project, and picking a day and having local people or even artists come to Brisbane and kind of give us their vision and having a way to maybe later view them throughout the city.
Yeah,
Like kind of like
doing an
a day
exhibition.
in the life of Brisbane.
I love that. Day in the life
Thinking,
of-
using lots of different artists.
And we
to
could,
participate.
and then we could pick a day that is a
pulling
typical
out.
either day of Brisbane, like the park, or it could be also any day in Brisbane.
I love that idea.
In the temporary exhibit space.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a show. It's a show idea, but it could be put out to the public
Mhm.
as something that
I
we
think-
pick a day and I love that idea.
Where would we put it?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, like where would you be able to view things like that? And the only place, and this is not an advertisement, but my house has a little screen, or could we project it somewhere? Could we have like a wall that like could project image of what people have created, or like a place that would make it public.
Or could we do an art show? I mean, this space is rather small, but we could have people make prints and bring them, and they could just be all kinds of stuff, just a real. And maybe we could do it in the library or the
Mission Blue.
or
Do we
Mission
need a
Blue.
curator
Or
though?
at Dana
We
Park.
might.
We might need a curator.
Yeah,
for that.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
and I love that idea. I'm just saying we would need a curator. But I love the idea.
So I'm unclear on
Actually-
it, actually. So is this an art, we're talking about an art show? Oh.
Oh,
I-
no, I was talking.
Yeah,
I was-
sorry. If you did it as a push pin party, it actually wouldn't, I don't think you would need a curator for it. And
What's that
basically, I mean, so this was something when I was when the Museum of Photographic Arts in San Diego opened up, the first exhibit that they did within the gallery space, because they didn't, it's a brand new museum, is that they did a push pin party, and basically they had people bring in their own artwork and put it on the walls. And so what you could do is just basically set up Mission Blue as like for a push pin party, and then people can bring in their prints and put them up from the day in the life of Brisbane.
I love it. And
so
More bigger.
And that would not be,
yeah. Oh, that's a great
would
idea.
not
And
be
it could
out
be
of
an
the-
event too. I mean, we have a reception
It
and
could be like the garden show.
Yeah.
Like it's open.
It's like a
you
pop-up
come
gallery.
in,
it's a party.
You could do it if you don't have enough, you could probably do it at the community center. I think that we would be able to do it because I don't think that it's going to really cost anything other than, maybe a little bit in administration.
Well, here's what I think would be good about any of our low hanging, as we call it, although that term kills me because
I
I
know.
don't like the idea of low hanging artwork. Does that, you know what I mean?
like
It
cheap.
just kills me,
It
but
cheap-
anyway,
cheapens it.
yeah.
Within reach.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's a great way, since we're working on a master plan and we are gonna want to have community input on it, and we're gonna wanna have community input on, after it's done with what's happening in public art, I think things like this are a great way to have the communities and the public feel more comfortable about having a voice, of becoming involved. It's a way of building community. So with any of these, the one thing that I like about that is if we can get so many people involved, and if it's simply the push pin to that extent, that even opens the door more for people to want to be a part of something, because there's not a limit on how many we can have.
Well, the good thing is you also develop a lead list, right? So people sign up, they give the email, they sign up with Noreen, and then we put those emails and we reach out to those artists in
other
our
things that-
community to provide input on the master plan. So we have these
That's what I'm
sessions,
saying.
hey,
It's a
we're
great
inviting
way
you.
to begin
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
people involvement, and that, because you could have 1,000 prints.
And you could also, I don't know, this kind of goes into what we were talking about digital art, but I mean, you can have a website later where people could go and see it digitally. And like, here's our whole collection of our push pin art.
Would it, would, yeah,
Then
I
it
mean,
becomes.
but
a
then
public
this
record.
one
Then it becomes
has,
public, then it becomes
Yeah.
something.
this one might have to be curated just because it'll be on the MTV.
I love the push pin idea. I mean, it would cost us, because we'd have to get,
We'd have to buy
chalkboard.
pens.
Well, we have to get, but wait, you'd also have to get like a chalkboard. You can't
Yeah,
put
yeah,
it in
because
the
we
wall.
can't.
Well, there's
That's
also
something
these,
very
there's also these
Yeah, I'm just
temporary,
saying,
yeah,
I'm just
there's
saying.
also temporary
They're just-
walls, like temporary walls that you can put up. I
Are
used
there
to own
still the
temporary
racks? So the art could just be even set in there.
I said, what if you use the old library?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's lighting in there.
I donated all of my easels. They're
The
all up at
bookcases,
Mission Blue.
the
Oh, yeah,
shelving
but- oh,
units
they're
are
still
still in
there?
there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
Oh,
great
that would
idea.
be a good one.
Well, you don't want to lay
Downtown.
them flat.
Well, you could,
No,
But it could be a
then-
sculpture.
No, you could, like,
No, it's
they're
a photo
slanted like
frame,
this.
But I
everybody,
think why limit it? What if
Yeah.
I made a vase and I wanted to?
And that was
come
what
and
you
just-
did
no,
that
no,
day.
no, that's a
Yeah,
different
it's
thing.
like, it has
It's
to
gotta
be
be a
tight.
day.
It's a day
It's a
in the
day in
life
the life
of
of Brisbane.
Brisbane.
So it
Oh,
has
that's
to
the
be-
theme.
That's
Photos,
It has
like
to be
photos of
It
Brisbane.
has to be
Yeah.
created of an image of that day.
Of that day in the life in Brisbane.
Yeah,
Could
so
be a
it's,
film.
so it's a
Could
little
be a
specific.
It could be a projected
Yeah.
Could be a
film,
film.
but it's, yeah. It's
Honestly, I kind of like the idea of just opening it up and like, I'm a Brisbane artist and this is what I take pictures of. And this is not
Well,
in
that's it.
Brisbane.
Well, that's it. No, but if
That
you-
would be limiting it to one day, but then that could be something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like
I'm
to
just
just
saying
get
there's
as many
lots of
people as possible.
But there's
Oh,
lots
yeah.
of shows,
Yeah.
ideas out there. This is just a specific one that I think has a lot of merit because it focuses us on the town. You know what I mean? It's like, this is in Brisbane, this happened in Brisbane. I mean, even if it's just a picture of a kid sitting on a
Right.
bench,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just something you happen to come
Could
across.
be a
Dog
drawing.
playing
You
at the
set the
park.
kids loose.
So maybe it encourages people who are moonlight artists. Maybe it's not like,
Absolutely.
maybe somebody that isn't this caliber where this is
No,
like where they
totally,
make their
that's
money. But
totally.
okay, I see.
Or
I see.
even
I see.
kids.
Yeah.
It's a
I
way
see, I
to
see.
get everyone. who
Anyone
wants to
can
be
do it.
involved and has a voice and says, well, you know what, I have some great photos. I saw a great photograph. I think that that's a great little way to get people involved in having a voice to what is going to come ahead
Exactly.
and their emails.
Day in the lives are extremely popular right now.
Oh.
Especially on YouTube and on digital film form. Because of the pandemic, everyone
Right.
wanted to know what people were doing. I love the idea as like maybe a kickoff project for this committee. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
This is, we're starting off. we
With
wanna
all of
educate
you, with everybody.
With everybody.
with
Mhm.
everybody,
Yeah, with everybody.
exactly.
And then maybe, like you said, on YouTube or whatever, it becomes a show, it becomes a film that
Is
you
this-
could,
But that's some, yeah, that's the
Is this
whole.
a
I mean,
temporary-
just to put online, just to for perpetuity.
I'm confused. Is this a temporary
Yes.
Yeah.
item?
Yeah.
Well, I would want to make sure that our ordinance allows us to
This is the
do
gray
this,
area.
and this isn't
Right.
part
To Diane's
Park and
point,
Rec.
right?
Yeah, it's, I mean,
it's an event.
it's an event, right?
I see what you're saying.
Could it be some part of our collection? Could everything be?
That's why I think the web page was
Mhm.
part of a collection. That's where it became solidified and documented.
Right.
We'd have to
We'll
get on our
include that in
server.
our questions to Tom.
Okay,
Okay.
but let's ask, yeah, that's a good question to ask. I'm just saying it might be a great way.
I know Stuart extensively mulled that type of thing over, so maybe you
Because
want
I love the bench idea
Reach
too,
out.
but I
Who?
want it to be,
And that's
Okay,
gonna be
okay.
tomorrow.
right,
we
but that's
extensively
also someone
discussed
that
that
can
kind of
be
thing.
led
Okay, oh,
by
I will.
Stuart if he gets too far.
Oh, I-
and he
Really
thought that there are ways to do
done.
that
Yeah.
within this.
Yeah,
program.
okay.
You know what I mean?
So I'll see if I can get some clarification.
Rosie will.
and we can bring that back.
So that's
Several
great
different-
for a one-day event. I think we should also start talking about a small project though.
Okay, can I add to the benches thing? So as the liaison to the county for CAFE, Cities for Age-Friendly Excellence, there have been various groups interviewed by CAFE around the city, different age groups, different kinds of people, and there is one consistent theme that keeps coming back over and over and over and over again, not only in Brisbane, but I went to the countywide event for this last week before, and there's one word that keeps coming up as a major need, and that is benches. So we end up in a crossover situation where we have a need that's unaddressed. So, you know, if we've got seniors going out on the Crocker Park Trail, they're not going there because there's nowhere to sit. We've got somebody who's injured, whatever.
They need to have a
accessibility issues.
rest.
So we cover all these different bases, and Woodland, Texas has the most incredible benches art project. It is so cool. And you look at some of the things in there and you go, oh my God, look what inspires you to think further. So it's practical and it's art. And I think when we kind of just threw it around the other day, it was like, and we could have multiple artists. And we could also have a bench for the Costco.
You could have sculpturists. You could have
Yeah,
you could have
a
somebody
base
who
bench
does.
and people
There's
can go
dedication.
out.
You could have, I saw some
I
really,
love, yeah.
when I was on the East Coast, I was walking through the campus of Swarthmore, which is a very old, Quaker school. And what they like to do a lot with their benches is they like to build them into the environment. So you'll have kind of a berm and it'll be stones that have been kind of set into the environment or into the landscape. And then there's like poetry or a dedication on it, but it's art.
Yeah.
So there's many mediums. There's metal, there's wood, there's earth, there's
And-
stone.
And I just think, I love this idea. Maybe I don't understand it. I just think it's such a great idea. It's so beautiful that it should be done with someone who is going to be able to put that forward and oversee it. Not
You're
just
right.
throw it out to the community and say everybody can have a bench. So I don't call that low hanging. Does that make sense?
I would like actual
It's like
artists
medium.
to make.
I call that someone who's gonna go, oh, this person saw this and this is here, who will bring to us what the needs are, because this is also a cost.
Yeah, well, even some of the concrete benches that are already out at Sierra Point, there are some artistic enhancements
That could be happen.
could happen.
Yeah, I just think someone needs to see that whole process, oversee it.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's
It
what
sounds,
I'm
it
saying.
sounds like medium.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like, oh,
Well,
we're getting it all
Great
together.
it's kind of like, you know how San Francisco has the
Yeah.
hearts?
Yeah.
And they're all different, and that's,
But
you
they had a
look at them.
major person who oversaw that.
Brisbane at one point was gonna have the stone ponies.
Mhm.
And that was going to be our version of something where, it was all throughout town, and it was a big fiasco. It's a big fiasco in the 90s. My mom will never let it go. So I think we've been right for something like that. But I agree. I think that, like, when we talk about planning for the Crocker Park Master or Crocker Park Trail, and you think about maybe doing murals, that's a collective. That's a collection that maybe needs some planning or some, oversight by maybe a specialist or curator or something like that. So what are maybe some other things on the list then?
That's smaller thing.
Well, Firth Park is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Firth
Yeah.
Park, I
Yeah.
actually think that, I actually have, because it was my project way back when, but I would not be able to get paid for it because I'm on this committee and I have total conflict of interest. But I think that, you could creatively paint those sculptures that need help anyways and make them real showpieces for that park.
Have we seen though the status of Firth Park lately? Because the last time I saw it, looked like it was decimated.
Yeah, so it's,
so
but those,
right now.
but
The trees are
but
doing
those pieces can be hauled out and just patched up and painted with some beautiful mural paint and look really great right away.
Okay.
And they can move, they can.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, I agree with all
Easy.
that. So what would mean, what I think it means, and it's fine, is that we need to put an RFP out that goes out to the community to say, these are things, would you give us a proposal?
Well, that's a good idea.
That's
Yeah.
how, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's-
not for
and-
us to decide.
No, but that's a
It's
great
for
idea.
us to get it out to the community if we're doing
Put it out
that, for them to say, oh, here's my envisioning of how I want to do this.
I think though
And
that
that's how we do.
I would, if we're going to put these out and we do them, and I would want to make sure that the rest of the park can support like opening a ceremony or something of that nature, because
Yeah. In
like
coordination
if we
with
have
something.
these great beautiful sculptures but the rest of the park looks like a hurricane hit,
Yeah.
then if that's taken away, I want those to be able to
But
shine.
that doesn't stop us from planning.
No, that doesn't.
It doesn't stop. I mean, we would be in coordination with Park and Rec. Absolutely. It would have to all come together at the same time.
Yeah, I
But
think we
I
need to
think-
talk to Public Works.
Public Works.
We need to
Public
figure out.
Works,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
have got to
Yeah.
put a whole new,
Yeah, probably prevent
Culvert.
this from happening again.
well,
So if we start with Firth Park and we start with the Pushpin project,
Mhm.
okay, let's just do those two.
Can you get a report from Public Works and
We
see
would
what's
need
the state of the
public, so we
park?
can
Yeah.
come back
How
with that.
long until?
And then I think it would also be that we would need to begin to get language on what the Pushpin project is. Because
it's your idea, Diane, this one's on you.
No, it was.
Oh, it's Danielle's.
Oh, the- the- no, the-
Yeah, it was in concert.
it was Danielle.
Danielle.
Danielle's.
And then
part,
she piggybacked.
Diane gave us a
A name.
I also, this
Day
is kind of,
one.
this is kind of something that's been bouncing around, but it's a thing that, okay, this is kind of crazy because you can't paint utility boxes. But in Houston, where I grew up, there was a really wonderful show where people painted doors. And it was called the Door Show. And I know there are doors all over town that the city owns, you know, and we could do a door project.
Like the bathroom door at the park, like
Exactly.
what kind of?
Oh, yeah. the
Exactly,
park.
bathroom
True,
doors at the
true,
park.
true.
How many doors do we own?
I know. What doors do we own?
Just count the doors.
Maybe the community center has a couple of doors that could get muraled on. I mean, or not muraled on. I mean, there's all you have to look at door show from Houston back in the 80s. But
You can paint on walls, it's easy.
there's all kinds of ways you could play with a door
Yeah.
in an artistic way. And so that's just a little project because I'm looking for surfaces that could work out. And the door project in Texas is really fun. And they all started with the same door.
Interesting.
In Vernal Heights, they started putting those stamps of koi fish everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a neat thing. I
What
felt
did
like,
they
oh,
do?
they have
Stamps of koi
stamps of
fish?
koi fish.
Oh,
Like
Or
on the
drawing,
sidewalk.
because they have
On the
colors.
sidewalk?
Yeah, on the sidewalk, on people's
Interesting.
walkway. That was kind of cute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
allowed it on your property.
I would call that surprise art.
That's
Surprise
surprise
art.
art.
Mhm.
Surprise art.
Look, there's another one.
Yeah.
How many can you find?
We could piggyback on the geocaching.
Mhm.
I remember that.
Oh God. my
So
God,
not to overload Noreen, but do you feel like that
That's
before we
That's
come up
plenty
with
for-
5 other things,
Yeah.
maybe we start with getting an update on First
Yeah,
Park and
and
thinking
what
of,
could
we
we
come back,
change?
we decide what is the appropriate budget, do we want it to be an artist from Brisbane, all those things.
Mhm.
And then also a push pin, maybe you want to take a look at the status of the library, is that a
Mhm.
good
Mm-hmm.
space?
Day in the life of Brisbane.
Well,
Showcase.
Firth Park is very well used in the summer.
Mhm.
Summer is coming. We know that
Mhm.
Public Works have got upgrades.
Mhm.
Maybe we can just push their schedule a little bit.
It'd be a nice therapy for the town
Yes,
to
it would.
fix it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind
that's
of a
a
healing
really
But I
event.
think we also need language if we're gonna do the Firth Park, so that it goes out to the community, so there are guidelines and
Correct.
proposals.
And something they can look forward to too.
You know.
We haven't looked forward to a lot in 3 years. It's so nice to be looking forward to things.
And then the language for the day in the park, a day in the life of
Yeah.
Brisbane, yeah.
Well, to have language, don't we need to have more of a discussion? Like next meeting about like.
Yeah, so I'll see if I can get some information prior to our next
Yeah,
meeting,
we
and then we
need
can
to know the
agendize it
places
for further discussion.
Yeah, that's all.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all. Oh, cool. Very good.
Great.
Movement. Movement. There's movement at the station.
I just want people to become involved.
Right. I love that the Dane whole thing is getting through anyway.
Well, when you sort of think, when you're reading some of these health things, people don't feel like they have any control of things right now. So this is also a therapeutic way to give people back some control of their lives. We haven't had any control of our lives for 3 years. No, you can't do this. No, you can't go that. No, you can't put on it. You can't. We're enabling now.
And it would be fun during the summer when
Yeah.
students have more time during the day.
Put on their creative hat.
It's the big can.
Can. Tom's gonna do the can.
Okay.
Okay,
right on time.
Shall we move to public comment?
yes, so do we have any public comment at this time? I do not see hands raised. I would like to acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Michael Barnes earlier today. And I think that's all at this time.
Okay, should we have a schedule next meeting?
Yeah, so,
When did you make it?
well, that's actually Juneteenth, and City
Oh,
Hall's
so it's
closed that
closed.
day.
Oh,
So we need to look at an alternate date, either June 5th or June 12th or
I'm out the
June.
5th.
Okay.
The 12th is possible. And the 26th is possible for me.
Neither. I'm gonna be.
I will be,
12th is good.
so I will be away on June 12th.
The
Okay.
5th is good.
12th is out for most people.
Okay, what
And,
about the
yeah,
26th?
How about the 5th? Were you?
5th, I'm out.
Fifth, I can, but,
the 26th works.
Oh, those were the only. Why don't you do maybe
You want me to do a
have
doodle poll?
Angel
Okay,
do
we'll
a
do a
doodle
doodle
poll.
poll.
Beautiful. All right.
Wow.
Okay, do
So,
you want to adjourn?
yes, I would like to adjourn. It is 6:03 and I'd like to thank everyone for a very productive meeting.
Nice.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
very much.
I'm gonna make some of
Okay.
these.